Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty podcast. My name is Bonz and joining me today we have Punts.
How are you guys?
Swans Rule 100.
Evening, everyone.
And making his Swans Bigfooty podcast debut is Chunkychicken.
Hey, everyone.
Now we may as well go on to a preview of the match. Look, it was a pretty good win. The second half was a bit disappointing, but I'm always happy to beat GWS. Especially if it's by over 40 points and when we were thinking it was going to be a bit closer. Swans Rule, what are your thoughts on the game?
It was a pretty lousy standard of football all around, really. We won it in a half, and it's disappointing in one respect that you don't kick on and really annihilate them, considering now you got three teams level on top and we got the worst percentage, so there's an opportunity missed. But 10 wins in a row, we haven't done that in donkey's years, so I don't think you can be too despondent overall. It's just, you'd like to continually win every week as well as possible. So I don't really focus too much on the negatives, but I concede it was an uninspiring second half. But, I mean, to get Tippett and McGlynn back and get through the game unscathed was good. And to get revenge on those little maggots, upstart maggots too. But, Jonathan Patton's a little upstart turd, so it was good to beat them. I thought the highlights, Kieran Jack, even though he saw going into it, but I looks at it now, he's even more sore. He had a really good game, and when it was there to be won, he probably was the best. A couple of people who we sort of take for granted, Nick Smith and Kennedy, they continue to do their job every week, and you almost forget to put them in the best because it's just expected that Kennedy will get his 20-odd possessions and Smith will shut down and play his role. I thought Grundy and Richards were pretty good on Patton and Cameron, though Grundy had a few clangers as usual. Pike played his best game for the year. Jetta continued his improvement on defence. There's still a massive gap between his best and worst, but that run-down tackle he applied stood in my mind. Some of his tackles are a bit weak, but he's getting better. And, I mean, Franklin does what he wants, and he gets the publicity for the goals and the forward play and that run through the middle, but it's really the unsung things he does, that defensive efforts and those chase downs that he doesn't get the credit for that I think are really exceptional for someone of his size. It was Clanger City out there, as I'm sure you guys would probably agree. But then, so I watched the Hawthorn Suns game earlier in the day as well, and that was quite similar in its clangers. That was pissing down rain here. But the difference, I think, between us and Hawthorn, if there's one thing I'm jealous of, is their ability to crumb and kick goals. Like Luke Bruce has, 26 in a row because he kicks from about 10 out every time, and they crumb their forwards. Like we need someone like Jetta or McGlynn or Rowan if he comes in, or Jack if he plays a full game, to get those opportunist goals. The umpiring was like school footy at times, it was like playing cricket against your little brother and he gets 20 wickets. That's what it's like playing GWS. And the umpiring, full stop this round, I watched about 5 games, was terrible. Like holding the ball rule, incorrect disposal, they're driving me mad at the moment. Yeah, that's it. That's just frustrating. And Saturday's games of football were nowhere near as good as today's. Like Dogs Melbourne was quite good, and that showdown was actually quite good to watch. So, yeah, it was a rubbish standard, but I think we've shown we can turn it on against the good side. So I'm pretty happy with 10 in a row. Let's keep going.
Okay, Chunkychicken, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, look, I would agree to a lot of that. That there were quite a few positives, and there's a few negatives that came out of the game. I think the overall ball use probably over the last couple of weeks has been a bit concerning in that our handball from the back, linking up and chaining, has been really good, and especially generating run. But sometimes we have a tendency to overuse it. But on the GWS game, we were just missing targets by hand galore, especially in the second half, and we were really turning the ball over, something fierce as well. What I did like about it was, again, having Tippett and Franklin back in the forward line and how they played together, with Tippett really acting as a foil to Franklin and Franklin playing higher up the field. And and definitely his forward line pressure is kind of a bit like what McGlynn was doing a couple of years ago, but it's a bit bigger, a bit harder to counteract some guy who's 6'6" and about 100 kilos and throwing you to the ground like a rag doll. So, look, having those two players back in the forward line is definitely a bonus, especially with the fact that key defender has to go to Tippett and then the second best has to go to Franklin. We won. It's a good win. Should have won by more. But yeah, that's really my thoughts on the game.
Okay, Punts. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was at the game live, and just our turnovers, as you guys have said, were just I don't know, might have been a bit more noticeable at the game. We just seem to put ourselves under a lot of pressure. I know when we get a handball game going and it's going well, it comes off beautifully and it tears other sides to bits. But just sometimes we just overuse the ball. Like we just go backwards, or we sideways when we can just go forward. I don't know how many times we went from, running off the half back and linked up and went into the forward line. With a mark, it just seemed scrappy every time we kicked goals. It was just from a stoppage or something like that. It wasn't clinical football, if you know what I mean. It was just a lot scrappy, and we just seemed to put ourselves under a lot of pressure. I think if it was a decent side, I know the game was pretty much finished halfway through the second quarter, sort of thing. But if it was a decent side, I reckon we would have got hurt on rebound. Far more. GWS didn't take their opportunities when they could get us on the turnover. I think a side like Hawthorn, your Geelongs will hurt you a lot more than that. Franklin, for 198 centimetre, 100 kilo plus guy, to be putting on the defensive pressure he does. As I said, I was at the game and his run down tackles, and it wasn't just where he ran from. It wasn't as if he was 5 steps away from whoever was running down. He was 15 metres away and he was running and chasing hard. It was something else. Now, that goal that he kicked running through the centre, I was right in front of that, and he is seriously a one-in-a-lifetime player. For a guy that moves that quick, he ran past that pack like Dangerfield and that, like he just split him to bits. And for a guy of his size to be able to do that, like I know people talk Carey and all these other gun centre half forwards, but no one is athletic as Franklin, and they might never will be. It's just unbelievable how the guy moves, and obviously it's his form's just the last 5-6 weeks. It's just turned around immensely. He's defensive. Obviously the goals will come, but it's just his defensive pressure is unbelievable and nearly almost the best in the forward line. That's the Smalls as well. He's almost better than them. I thought Kieran Jack's game was very good. I think he had 20 odd disposals to half time. He was in and under, and he was getting the clearances there. Had pushed forward, kicked a couple of goals, which was good on the birthday boy. I thought Malcheski was good at times. He also turned over the ball a little bit. I thought his run and carry off half back with 27 disposals, he was still going at 80%. So he was really good. I thought after a bit of a down game last week for Jake Lloyd, a lot of young kids could have just dropped their head. He didn't have the best game against Richmond, but he actually played very well. He had 20 odd disposals. He missed a couple of targets going forward, but his pressure that he put on around the ball was really, really good. And another young kid in Harry Cunningham too. He had another 17 disposal, 80%. I know a lot of people say he goes backwards all the time. It's only 15-metre kicks, but you know what I mean. He makes the right decision. Anyone else could just bomb away and send it to the boundary line or send it to an outnumbered contest. So he makes the right choices all the time, and he had 7 marks as well. So he's obviously he's running real hard to create space for himself. He's not the tallest bloke, so to take 7 marks, you've got to be able to. You are running hard across the ground to get to the ball. There was a little bit of niggle. I don't know if. Obviously, I haven't watched the replay on TV, but there's a lot of niggle going on behind the scenes. I don't know, with McVeigh, and even Jetta got fired up at one stage, which was good to see. And a couple of his tackles, 3 or 4 tackles that were good rundown tackles. I know he's off and on all the time, but I guess we're gonna have to expect that with Jetta now. I think everyone wants him to get back to his 2000 form, but it's a totally different role. He was playing high half forward in 2000. Now he's on the wing. He's pushing in defence. So, he's not kicking the goals, but I'd probably almost rather him what he's doing now, giving us drive off the wing. I still think he can run and carry it a bit more, but obviously that's a confidence issue. I don't think that's anything to do with injury, or he's not as quick as he was and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully he keeps going the way he is. I thought Ted Richards' first quarter, a couple of them smothers he did on Cameron were just to really set up the game. He just knew that he was on, and to keep Cameron's All-Australian last year, so he done a good job on him. And also Heath Grundy, a couple of little handball issues, fadeaways. Sometimes a little bit of LeBron James goes into his head, but other than that, he was really good. A couple of efforts jumping in front of Patton, was good. I thought I thought he actually won the Battle of Patton, considering round one Patton gave him a bit of a bath. So that was good to see him get back. Lukey Parker, 30 possessions. Just the midfield altogether, I thought were a little bit, and they had the possessions up, from previous weeks, but they all went at about 55 to 60% accuracy. So it's not, it's probably not the greatest. Obviously, a lot of that would have been contested, so you can sort of maybe half that, three-quarter of that, but still there was a lot of passes that just got cut off. McGlynn was good. His attack on the ball was just as good as it has been the whole year. Coming back, he was a little bit rusty, a couple out in the fulls and missed a couple of targets. But other than that, he'll be good. But other than that, it was good to get the 4 points. As you said, we put it away in the second quarter, and after that, we sort of moved on. But that's enough of my rant. We'll move on to the next piece.
Look, one player I did actually want to bring up, and I'm surprised no one actually brought him up in their review. I thought Jeremy Laidlaw actually had one of his better games for the club on the weekend. He's good in the contest. His ability to cut in front and help with an overhead spoil on both Cameron and Patton was quite important on the weekend. And his rebound up the ground is improved immensely since the start of the year. We're all worried about his disposal and his speed, but it doesn't seem to really be affecting him at the moment. Chunky, do you have any thoughts on Laidlaw's season at the moment?
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I thought it was a pretty good pickup actually. We got him on a really low wage when we got him from Carlton, and he did have a pretty good season for Carlton a couple of years ago. So yeah, I was really happy to get him. And his first couple of games were a bit dodgy. I kind of thought, if it was between him and Rampy, for when AJ comes back, then it will probably be Rampy. This is probably like the first couple of weeks when the whole team was down. But watching him play now, he's just been really, really good, really solid down back, really consistent. Doesn't miss many targets. He cuts in front all the time. Good distributor, breathes the ball really well. So why the hell Carlton got rid of him, I do not know. You watch them play these days, they don't really play that well, and they got rid of a pretty good defender. Another player that we haven't really talked about is Pike, and I was really happy with his game. Last week, not so good. Kind of looked like he was pretty unfit and not really ready for it, but he dominated Mumford. He absolutely destroyed him, and I think
Mumford still won the hitouts.
He might have won the hitouts, but Pike had more of an impact, in my opinion.
Yeah, they both didn't kick a goal. I don't. I think they were pretty even.
Look, I think them being even going to the match would have been a good thing for us. Pike did a great job negating Mumford, if anything. Yeah. Mumford couldn't get... a lot of... when the matches that GWS have won this year, Mumford has been instrumental to their strong performances. So the fact that he was negated to, I think it was only 8 disposals on the weekend, and he didn't seem to be really at his bollocking best, it gives a lot of credit to Pike. They couldn't get that extra large presence around the ground, so the big man deserves a round of applause.
Well, Mumford's a better player than... Yeah, Mumford's clearly a better ruckman than Pike, head-to-head, so to break out even, as you say, that's a win to Pike, essentially. And they didn't really get any drive from the clearances or anything. I don't know what the numbers were off the top of my head, but I didn't fit, as you said, he's been instrumental when they win, and I thought Pike shut him down. He didn't star or anything, but I thought, given what he did last week and the amount of time he was able to spend on the ground, that was a big tick for him, especially when Derricks did get dropped so he could stay in as the number one ruck. So, yeah, I'm happy with that going forward.
I think Reed's picked up the slack a bit as well, fairly good. He's not as, useless as he was at the start, so he's helping out and chopping out a bit.
Yeah, I'd still like to see him do a bit more around the ground, but he's playing all right.
Yeah, I'm been happy with Reed's last few weeks. He's been handy, especially around, if we need a third man up around the ground or just
it is handy, and he's all right, but he never stars, and he doesn't. I think he could be so much better as a player, but he's handy. He's a good, honest contributor, but he doesn't kick a few goals or he doesn't get as many marks as he could. I expect a little bit more from him in the next few years. Personally.
I liken him a bit to Westhoff from Port Adelaide. He's playing the very similar role.
Westhoff from Port Adelaide's elite, though. Westhoff's had an amazing season this year, and he was strong last year as well. Reed isn't quite at his level yet. I'm just waiting for Reed to be made into a defender. Have to play in defence for an entire game. That's when we're going to see him at his best.
He's almost playing a role at the moment, whereas he's just a tall midfielder. He's coming off the square. I watched him on the weekend. He's coming off the centre square and going straight into the stoppages, and he's actually not leaving the stoppages and going back out. He's actually staying around the stoppages because he is so big. And it's a funny role Reed's playing. He's sort of just given a bit of a wild card, you know what I mean? Just you do what you want sort of thing, go where you want, and, which is good. As you said, if he drops into defence and helps out, I think this week he'll have to drop in defence against West Coast. So, as you said, I think a lot of people have said that he'd be a lot better as a centre half back to stay there full time. He does seem to, when he goes down there, he reads the ball well, and he just looks comfortable down there. So I guess you never know. It's all trial and error. He's still only 22. He's got plenty of time to show at either end.
Well, if the scores are tight with less than 2 minutes to go, you know where to park him, straight down in the goal square.
Easier man, that's for sure.
Now, Punts, we'll go on to the next subject now. You were there to watch the reserves this weekend. Would you be able to give us your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I watched the reserves. Obviously, it was low scoring until half time. I think it was only 40 apiece at half time, and then Rowan was pretty much knocked out cold in the second quarter. He got up, but he was trying to play the game, and I don't know what he was thinking. He was out of it, that was for sure. And then Lear went off halfway through the second quarter as well and didn't come back on, and they took Membray off as the emergency for the seniors, so they were down to one on the bench. So obviously in the second half they ended up getting done by 40. So you could, no excuses, but they were literally down to one on the bench. So from the reserves that I've seen the last few weeks, Lewis Robert Thompson's best game. I've probably seen him actually play this year, from seniors and the seconds. He played at full back and he played on Boyd. Boyd didn't make an impact at all, and LRT actually played really well. He looked a lot fitter. He was running and that sort of thing. So that was good to see. I've always said that I think he's a better defender than he is forward. Tommy Mitchell got, I think, at 20 odd possessions. Obviously around the clearances he was good. He was good once again, but Toby Green gave him a bit of a touch up. They were on each other, and Toby got 40 possessions, and gave Mitchell a bit of a touch up. Shane Biggs was best on by an absolute country mile off half back. He got about 30. I think he got 30 plus, and just I don't know if he missed a target by a foot. He's like Malcheski, but a right footer. When Malcheski's on, he doesn't miss a target. He played really well, and I would just wish he was on the main list because I think he'd get a game at the moment with Shaw being out. But that's the way it goes. Who else was good? Towers did a couple of good things, run down tackles in his first game back, which was good to see. Tommy Walsh at centre half back actually played reasonably well. Also, who else? Any other players I haven't brought up that you're interested in?
What about the old man, Ryan O'Keefe?
No, O'Keefe did well, but a couple of times he turned it over, and he's just still turning the ball over with his high bombers. But he was in, it's just normal Ryan O'Keefe in and under tackle, and just the old Ryan O'Keefe himself. Matthew Dick actually played pretty well off the half back as well. Dick in. So he played all right, but besides that, it was a bit of a piling on.
I want to ask
from
about
GWS.
Robinson.
Sorry,
Robinson.
Robinson was good. A bit lower stats than he normally have, but not as instrumental as he was. Obviously, in the first half, Membray was a little bit quiet, but he pushed up to the midfield again like he has been doing. It was an interesting. He's been sort of playing centre half forward and really pushing up into the middle, sort of like Sam Reid, but with taking the defence side out of it. He's been playing that sort of role, but they put their best backman on him. They put Plowman on him. Because he is in that good a form at the moment. His previous 5 weeks have been. I'm surprised he hasn't. As I said, if Adam Goods wasn't playing, it'd have to be Membray because he's just the last 4 or 5 weeks has just been. And he's from when I seen him at the start of the year, he was lazy. and always had the talent to take a mark and a kick, but now he's actually running hard up and down the ground, taking marks, and his defensive pressure's turned around since when I seen him in round 1 until now. His defensive pressure, he's just so obviously his fitness. He had an issue with his fitness at the start of the year. He's obviously rectified that, and he's putting on an immense forward pressure. So, which is good to see. I hope he does get a game, but as you know, it's hard at the moment with the forwards in there.
And the last player I just wanted to ask about, two more. I'd like to know about Towers and Nankervis.
Yeah, Towers in his first game back was good in the first half, laid a couple of good tackles, missed the goal, then kicked another one. His defensive pressure was good, and he is real, like, for a 189 centimetre bloke, he's got elite speed. So in his first game back, after 3 weeks out, he was a little bit rusty in the second half, might not have been out, have run out. And so who was the second one?
Nankervis.
He took a couple of good marks, but besides that, he was pretty quiet. Naismith, for how big that bloke is, he'd have to be one of the most. He's gifted athletically. He's just, some of his rundown tackles on the weekend were just phenomenal. He's really, really athletic. If he can get his body right, he seems to play 6 games and get injured for 3. And if he can get his body right, I really rate him. He's very athletic, and some of his defensive acts. He's not quite like Mumford around the packs, but he's really, really quick. To get onto a tackle and stuff like that. So I reckon he could become a good player if they stick with him, and they can. Obviously, I think this might be his second year on the rookie list now. I don't know what they're expecting to do next year. So, but yeah, that's about as much as the twos.
Okay, now we may as well go on to this week. There's been a fair bit of controversy in the Victorian media in particular, as started by one very overweight, snobbish Collingwood supporter. Our academy is getting a bit of a blast. I wanted to ask, just for your thoughts on it, guys. Like, I honestly can't see the fuss that they're making about it. We need to grow the game in New South Wales. That's the main thing, and we're still not getting these kids for free. Punts, you've been watching the under-18s and the TAC Cup as well as me. How highly do you rate Heaney and Mills?
Heaney, I'd say, I know some people say he's in the top 5 in the midfield. I'd almost go to say that he's the best from the games that I've seen. I know they're different, as in maybe the level's a little bit different. The game that Heaney played last week against Northern Territory, he had 30 odd possessions, blah blah blah. And I watched the TAC on Friday, and if you were to see standout midfielders, I reckon he's the best midfielder in the draft. And from what I've heard, all the commentaries on him, they've also said that he's probably the best midfielder in the draft. He's tall, he's quick, he plays inside out like Hanbury. And as I seen him 2-3 weeks ago, he played for the Seconds, the Sydney Reserves, and I watched him there. And obviously that's a little bit downgrade that league too, but it's also against men, and he played really well in that game too. I think he's 80 odd kilos, so he's body wise he's ready to go. He doesn't have to develop. And as I said, he's also tall. I think he might be 186-7 centimeters, something like that. So he's very tall, inside out game, uses the ball very well, can take a mark, push forward, kick goals. Mills kicks a little bit more goals than him, but I think Sydney are going to be very happy getting him and Mills next year. Obviously, you never know what's going to happen with them, if they're going to become guns or not. But from all reports and from what I've seen, that I think he's going to be. I don't think being a star at AFL is anything past him, which is a big call. But you're just going to have to wait till they come on. But he's definitely going to be a gun. And also Ab Davis too. I seen him 3 weeks ago, set in the twos, and they put him centre half back, centre half forward, and he did a role at both ends. So he could come in as a bit of a swingman. I think he's about same.
Abe Davis right now would probably be.
So yeah, and he looks like he's going to be a bit of a player too, which is good. So we could get Davis and Heaney this year, and Mills next year. So I'm pretty confident we've got a pretty good midfield going forward, and a developing centre half forward, centre half back.
It's going to be interesting, actually. Like, just thinking about it in my phantom draft at the moment, I'd probably have, if Heaney was on the open market, like if he was on the open market, he'd probably, I know people are saying he's a top 3 pick at the moment. I think he'd probably go at number 4. I can't see, look, GWS are going to take either, like, whoever's got the bottom selection, whether it's GWS, St Kilda or Brisbane, it's going to be McCartan or Wright. The only thing
definitely.
The only reason it wouldn't be McCartan would be because of the diabetes. At selection 3, it's hard to go by Durden. Like, and not to mention, all 3 of those clubs will need a key position defender. So, it's going to be hard to go by there. After this, it'd be really hard to split. The only midfielder in the draft that could potentially be at Heaney's level would be Brayshaw from Sandringham Dragons, but I still think Heaney's just a more all-round footballer, and the thing that's really impressed me about Heaney this year at under-18s level is the amount of space he can find in traffic. He seems just to have a couple of extra seconds on everybody around him. He can have 3 or 4 players near him, and he'll manage to get through them. It's almost Pendlebury-like at times. He might need to improve his disposal efficiency a little in the future, but he looks scary. He's going to be very good, and as many midfielders as we've got coming through our team at the moment, it really wouldn't surprise me if he's starting 18 next year.
Yeah.
I can understand why Maguire would be, like, it's not going to get removed, but we are getting a bargain in this draft. There is no doubt about it. I can't make an accurate assessment on Mills yet, but he's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, well, if as you said, if Heaney was on the open market, there's no way in the world that he'd get through to our pick.
No,
he'd
be top 5, guaranteed.
That he'd probably go at number 4, 5, something like that. Obviously, the key position players are going to go before him if that's what the other clubs are looking for. But to be honest, if Melbourne had the number 1 pick, I reckon he'd be taking it. He'd almost be taking it 1 or 2. Which
it depends on the club. Like, I wouldn't rule out maybe a club like if GWS had the number 1 pick. I wouldn't rule them out actually taking another midfielder because they've got key forwards. Like,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
You almost bring in Durden going up the draft because he can play a key defender.
Yeah,
and that's probably what they need most on their list right now. But he'd be right up there. It really depends. It's an open year.
Yeah, and as you said, he plays. That's the good thing about him. He plays inside and out. It's almost sort of Hanbury like the way he plays inside and out.
As much as I love Hanbury and he's been a star, I think Heaney's got more potential than him. That sounds insane, and people listening to this podcast are probably going to be throwing things at their computer screen, but Heaney's going to be ridiculous. Get excited, guys, because we haven't had a kid come to the Swans like this in years.
And the thing is, he's a tall midfielder.
Which is exactly what we need. How big is he now? He's nearly, he'd be 186, 187 right now.
Yep.
Jeez, it's going to be scary. Look, we may as well go on to the preview of the next match. We got West Coast this weekend. Chunky Chicken, you may as well get us started. What are your thoughts on the West Coast game?
Look, I'm looking forward to another routine win. I'm going to be honest. We, as far as my memory serves, we haven't lost to them since I think 2007 or 2008, and that was at the tail end of the famous rivalry when I think it was the Ben Cousins game when they broke the streak of like 1 point and whatnot. So since then, I'm pretty sure we've won almost every single game I've played against them. For ins, I'm not too sure who's actually going to come in. I mean, you were saying before Rowan suffered concussion in the second, so I'm not sure he'd make it in. But as for ins, I'm not too sure. Outs, not too sure. So I'd imagine the team will probably stay the same. Pretty good matchups. You're looking at a Richards Kennedy matchup, which would be pretty good. I think they've got a couple of danger players like McGovern's popped up every now and again. You got Lacroix, who will probably get minded by Smith, or maybe someone like Rampy. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Wish I was over there, to be honest, because it is cold in Melbourne.
Okay, Swans Rule, your thoughts on the West Coast game?
To me, I've actually watched a little West Coast lately, including the derby, which they could have won, to be fair. But to me, they just decided dominates the hit-outs. I think they're like third in the hit-outs. They don't concede them, but they don't get a lot of the ball. They don't tackle much. They don't apply much pressure, and they don't take many marks. They're there. Sometimes they've even resembled witches' hats in the game. Like that game against Geelong, which is actually a few weeks ago, they were pathetic in that game. So if they dish up that sort of rubbish and we apply our good, consistent pressure, it should be a routine win. They've got a potentially dangerous forward line, but they need delivery to make it work. Pritis and Co, a lot of those midfielders, they're average plotters with poor disposal efficiency. I know sometimes we're a poor disposal efficiency team, but I think we get a lot more of the ball, and I think our pressure will win out in the end. Looking at Dean Cox, who I've rated the best ruckman I've seen since Simon Madden. He's gone a bit limp these days. I don't think he's got much left to offer. And the only issue is probably that home ground advantage, and we've shown Subiaco or Patersons, whatever it's called these days, doesn't bother us too much against them, since they haven't come to Sydney since about 2010, I think. So I'm pretty confident we'll win. I wouldn't see any changes. I think only Hanbury and Shaw are best 22 certs out of the people who are out when they're fit, and neither of them I would expect to be fit this week. So I think we have to be pretty confident going into this one. Yeah, we've had a bit of a down form lately, but down form and winning is a sign of a good side for me, so I expect the streak to get to 11 this week and bring on Carlton.
Okay, Swans. Punts, what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I reckon it'll be an interesting game. Obviously, Hanbury seems to tear up West Coast every time he goes out. I don't know if it's a bigger ground, he just gets off the leash. But he'll be a big miss this week. I don't think there probably won't be any changes. I'd like to see Biggs come in off the half back to give Malcheski a chop out. I just think that Malcheski, when he doesn't have a Shaw, another running half back in the side, he cops a lot of attention. I know Jones is the other running half back, but let's remember that he's played a game and a half, and he's going to focus on defending before he's going to attack. So I wouldn't mind seeing, say, Brandon Jack go out for Biggs come in, play off half back, and Jones go to sub. It won't happen because I don't think they'll upgrade. I think the side will probably stay the same. What I was interested in, I don't know what your guys' thoughts was. I hate it, obviously. I don't want it to happen. Do you think they'll bring two ruckmen in to play against Cox and Nui?
No, because
Derek's
like
I
know Cox is almost finished, but is Pike going to be able to go against? I don't want to see it. No way in the world. I'd rather throw Tippett in the ruck than have Derek's in the side and have another runner in the side. But will they go with two rucks against Nat Nui and Cox?
Wasn't it Pike and LRT last year?
No, it was Mumford and they had Mumford, Tippett, and Pike in the side last year. Yep.
Look, I can't see it happening. We're going to lose the hit-outs no matter what.
Yes.
There is no point in bringing in an extra tall justify a losing cause.
They win the hit-outs, but they don't get their hands on the ball, so who cares? Natanui does nothing around the ground. There's no issue to me.
Yeah, I agree. There's no issue with it. They're going to get hit-outs to advantage, that's fine. But as long as our midfielders are on our game, and we've traditionally played Patersons, Simmons, whatever the hell stadium it's called, pretty well, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think it's actually going to be an easier victory for us next week than it was this weekend. Now, may as well go on to Sure Thing and Worst Nightmare. Swans rule?
My sure thing is in the lead up to the game, they'll mention the 05-06 classic games in the preview, and I'll say that Nick Nat will take less than 5 marks because I've never seen a more overrated, useless player around the ground than Nick Natanui. Do you want the Doomsday?
Doomsday, Worst Nightmare.
Look, my Doomsday is probably that Punts doesn't call it a danger game. That would make me worried if he didn't think we had some chance of losing the game. So hopefully he's a bit concerned and we'll win like we normally do. Most at stake. Do we do that, or have I stolen that from that show? Anyway, we'll do it now. I'd say that Adam Simpson has the most at stake because wasn't West Coast meant to be a top 4 threat this year with their draw? And every time I watch them, they look worse each week. So I think we'll do them, but it'll probably be like the GWS game, a win where we go, we could have won by more, and we win by about 30 or so. So comfortable win. Just sit back and enjoy and plan for the Carlton game.
Okay, Chunky Chicken, Your worst nightmare and sure thing?
All right, I'll start off with a sure thing being, sounds a bit confident, but I reckon we'll get up by about 6 goals. That's my sure thing, 6-goal win. And I'm not going to bet the house on it because I don't have one, but that's what I think my sure thing's going to be. I reckon for my nightmare would be probably something like Port Adelaide winning by quite a lot and killing us percentage-wise. That would be pretty bad because they are playing at home. So if we can make up some percentage, we're going to really need it. And at most at stake, I reckon it's got to be on North Melbourne, especially with their coach, just so inconsistent that if Hawthorn can get the win, that means North Melbourne's chance of top 4 is completely gone. It's down to pretty much a 4-horse race. We wouldn't really include Geelong in that. And he'd be getting the heat on him too.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. North Melbourne losing this weekend was probably the highlight of my weekend. And yeah, Scott's is under a bit of pressure going into this week. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be fun to watch the shows. We might actually not get too much media coverage about us for once.
No, I don't think he's under pressure because he seems to be Brayshaw's best friend, so he's probably right. But yeah, who else is going to coach that team any differently? Their best player's 35. He's still the first one you tag. They're a rubbish team. That loss to North Melbourne in round 4 stings more just about than the GWS one. And they, without that win against us, they wouldn't even be in the top 8. I think the Crows are a better side than North Melbourne at the moment.
Okay, Punts, your worst nightmare and sure thing?
Oh, my worst nightmare is to continually. I know Kieran Jacks. They said he could have come back on, but we really don't want any more injuries. We seem to be losing one every week. I know we got Ben McLean and Tippett back, but it's getting to a point now where we need to start getting continuity into the team and the players. Obviously, Tippett missed the first half, as we know, and come back, went out. We need to start getting the team, all fit and firing, leading into finals. We don't want to, keep getting injuries here and there. We've lost Shaw. I know they're not big injuries, but we just need to, go a few weeks without getting any more injuries and just, no more injuries. We don't want any more injuries. My sure thing is Western Australia, buddies from there. Poor bloke Brown from the Eagles, I think, done his knee on the weekend, which is pretty shocking to see because anyone that does an ACL in it's just a shocking injury. And he normally takes Buddy. I think now Buddy, I know he's been playing, he's in good form. I think this might be the big one where he pulls the team really apart because I just can't see. I think Mackenzie's going to have to go to Tippett. If not, I don't know who they're going to put on. They might put Will Schofield on Buddy, and I think Buddy will tear Schofield to bits.
They might have to bring Glass back.
Who else have they got? They might have to put that McGovern back that they've been playing forward at the moment. So I think my sure thing is, because I don't know, with Brown out, I don't know how they're going to do it. Obviously, McGovern has been swingman back and forward. He's obviously not as athletic as Franklin is. If anybody is, I think maybe Will Schofield might be the best matchup for him. But I think he'll absolutely tear him to bits in the air, around the ground, everywhere. So I think this might be a massive game from Franklin in front of his home, where he's from. So that's my sure thing is for Franklin to kick 6-6.
Interesting. Franklin's worst opponent by a mile is actually West Coast. Statistically,
he's struggled on Glass for years. Glass has been a really difficult matchup for him.
Yeah, and no Glass and no Brown.
And he struggled against Freo as well, so he hasn't really tore Subiaco up before.
No, I just think he will.
Yeah,
now with them two players out, I just can't see a matchup. I think he'll tear Schofield to bits. To be honest with you, if they try and put that match up on in the air and around the ground, so maybe they put Mackenzie to him and put that big McGovern back to Tippett or something like that. But then I don't know how they're going to see it. But I think this will be a big game from Buddy. I reckon this will really stamp it.
Okay, and my sure thing and worst nightmare for the week. Sure thing, I think Jake Lloyd will have his best game for the club. I think the way he runs over the ground and he moves, Subiaco will be a nice fit for him, and he'll pick up from where Hannanbury usually leaves off at Subiaco. So Lloyd will get at least 24 disposals. My worst nightmare will actually be Swans Rule 100 not paying me up from our bet last week. Just wanted to bring it up near the end of the podcast. $20, thanks, mate.
Happily pay it.
Look, guys, we may as well go on to... Has anyone got a final prediction for it? Punts? Is this the scoreline?
Oh, Sydney by 7 points.
Only 7?
Yep.
Okay.
Close game. Kennedy and Franklin, the two big forwards.
Okay. Chunk?
I'll probably say... sorry, I know you're going to ask Chunky Chicken, but I'll butt in. I think I said Swans by 30 odd before, but after the preview, I've decided to up it to 75 because I think we'll just smash the absolute shit out of them. So if Punch thinks 11, I think 70. We'll probably be 40, so somewhere in between.
Okay,
nice
Chunky?
one. Well, I've put my sure thing as 6 goals, so I'll be disappointed if that doesn't get hit as a bare minimum. Didn't we win by about 6 goals last year against them or something? Was it 40, 50 points?
Yeah, it was something around there, actually. I think it might have been... Yeah, it was 40-something points.
And we've been doing that consistently over the last couple of years too.
Yeah, that 2012 win, I always remember instead of last year's against West Coast. That was a pretty convincing one as well.
About 80 points, wasn't it?
I think so. I mean, they haven't beaten us for donkey's years, so maybe they're due, so don't know.
Look,
It'd be pretty disappointing.
As for my tip this weekend, I reckon I'll probably go with the Swans by about 4 goals. I think we'll start off the first half on absolute fire, get about a 40-point lead, and just coast in the second half as per usual. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty podcast. Thank you, Chunky Chicken, for coming on to the show.
No problem. Happy to be on.
I've been joined by Punts and Swans Rule 100, and thank you and good night.